Hi, this is Becky Ivory with the American Lands Council. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I know we did around here. This week, I want to share with you two articles that I found. The first article I want to share with you today is one that was found in the Bonner County Daily Bee in Idaho. And it discusses a decision made by their Natural Resource Committee that opposes a wilderness designation to many of the public lands in their area. Now, why would they do this? Is it because they don't want to protect their lands, their environment? Of course not. They do want to protect those things. But they understand that when you designate something as wilderness, oftentimes that means a loss of our public access to those lands. In this case, we would lose our recreation access, our timber production, and our grazing access. The second article brings up a very important subject. This was put in the Daily Sentinel in Grand Junction, Colorado. It brings up a study by a nonpartisan group called the Center for Western Priorities. And they discuss that there are 4 million plus acres in 6 of the western states alone that are completely 100% inaccessible because of these wilderness designations. That does not include the places that are nearly impossible to reach. You have to be a backpacker or some serious sort of hiker to be able to access those lands. This is simply the lands where you are not allowed to set a foot on them by law. That means no hiking, no camping, no fishing, no sightseeing. This really affects our private life, but it also affects our economy. Outdoor recreation is a huge part of our economy here in the West. According to this study, $13.2 billion of Colorado's industry is all from outdoor recreation, and that's one state alone. And access is not just a problem for the public. Even the BLM cannot access a lot of its own lands that it's supposed to be managing because of the way that these are set up. A lot of our public lands are surrounded by private lands and there is no access. So there's no way to get to the land. Another problem is what they call checkerboarding. Back in the 1800s, the government sold a lot of the lands to places like railroad companies and things like that in a checkerboard pattern. What started out with good intentions really ended up with some bad results that are hurting our states today. One more point that I'd like to make is that when we make these wilderness designations, oftentimes our school state trust lands are taken up in those acres. And that directly affects the children in our schools. That's where our states get their money to fund schooling. When those are completely cut off, those schools cannot make money to fund our schools anymore. That doesn't mean that we can't protect our lands. The transfer of public lands is one of the most important things we can do to protect our environment and our natural resources. It's much easier to access your local officials than it will ever be to access somebody in Washington, D.C. If you don't like your local officials, you and your neighbors can get them voted out and changed, and you can put somebody in that position who upholds your values. I hope this gives you a little bit better understanding of what wilderness designation really means and why we are so hesitant to turn all of our public lands into a nationally wilderness designated area. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week.